Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale. Up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery with the purchase of any smart bed. Ends Monday. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Matt Moscano.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscano.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio.
Let's rock! Go!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Decision Critical, Concierge Nursing in Baton Rouge. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Paul O'Neal.
They're chanting Paul O'Neal's name.
Jordan Kitchen.
Jordan, 20-footer, head of the key, good!
And Mr. Toby Tomplay. We're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. Ton to do today. Brandon Taylor here in 1 hour. Ross Jackson will be here in hour 3. We'll continue our SEC fall preview series, taking a look at the Kansas Razorbacks. Our buddy John Neighbors, plural, John Neighbors, will be here in hour 2 as well. After today, just one more school to go. Be Oklahoma tomorrow. We'll knock out our SEC fall previews looking at LSU's opponents. But let's begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
The New Orleans Saints on Wednesday had a trio of free agents try out for the team. You probably won't recognize any of the names. Unless if you're like a really diehard like NFL sycophant. But Amari Barno, Jeremiah Martin, Oshane Jimenez all tried out for the New Orleans Saints. And then the team did announce here on Thursday that they have signed Jeremiah Martin. If you're not, I'm going to get to why this is important in a second. Jeremiah Martin played collegiately at Washington and Texas A&M, went undrafted. He's 6'3", 265. He's a defensive end who's bounced around the league a little bit. Cleveland, the Giants, the Packers, actually Cleveland twice. He was with the Arlington Renegades and the Birmingham Stallions in the UFL as well in the Spring League. So he's been around a little bit, but what's really of note there is that he's a defensive end. And this is relevant because he is a similar size and plays the same position as Isaiah Foskey. Now, we have talked a good bit here since Sunday about the injuries that the Saints suffered in that game. Obviously, a couple of offensive linemen with Will Clapp, Trevor Penning, and then Bub Means, with Clapp and Means both going to IR, meaning their seasons are over. So, naturally, the Saints were going to add an interior offensive lineman. They may still add a more receiver help, but this one's interesting because they didn't suffer any injuries at defensive end. They're looking for someone to take Isaiah Foskey's spot. Now, they're not going to say that publicly, but the former second-round pick played the most defensive snaps of anybody in the game and didn't record a statistic. So when your former second-round pick, who is very much on the chopping block this year as far as making the roster in entering his third year in the NFL, when you play him the entire preseason game, first preseason game, and he doesn't record a statistic, and then 3 days later you're working out dudes at his position, and then you sign one of them, that's a pretty good indicator the writing's on the wall for Isaiah Foskey. And this is really just bizarre. You know, when you look at the Saints' second-round pick history, the recent history has been pretty good. I mean, Tyler Shuck was a second-rounder this year. Last year, they took Kool-Aid in round 2, who they're expecting to be a starter this year. Foskey was 3 seasons ago. Before that, it was Alontae Taylor, who last year was out of position playing boundary corner, but they needed him there. He's more of a nickel or a safety. Pete Werner was a second-round pick. Eric McCoy was a second-round pick. You got starters in round 2, which you should. If you're drafting round 2, you should be drafting starters in round 2. Marcus Williams back in 2017. Michael Thomas, Von Bell were second-rounders. So you've had a lot of success really going back to 2016, drafting in round 2. Foskey is this big, light bulb flashing outlier, a guy that was just a complete whiff. But what's so interesting is actually before that run started with Von Bell, it was really bad for a long time. You can go back to Tracy Porter, who was taken in round. I'm not trying to give you a historical lesson. It's just sort of an interesting fact. I'll get back to the present in a second. But they drafted Tracy Porter out of Indiana in round 2 back in 2008. They didn't have a second rounder in 2009. They drafted Charles Brown out of USC in round 2 in 2010. It was a total bust. Then they went 3 years without a second-round pick. They didn't have a second-round pick in 11, 12, and 13. Then in 14, they took Stanley Jean-Baptiste, who was cut entering his second year. And then in 15, they took Haole Kikaha, which was an absolute abomination. And arguably that 2015 draft is the worst draft in the history of the NFL. And I say all of that because I think one of my big contentions on this team, the thing that I'm looking for, is I want to see if these draft picks, this draft class, where you took 9 players, if this draft class can become the core of what we hope will be the next contending era for the New Orleans Saints. Now, I tie that into 2015 because this is the most players the Saints have drafted since 2015. And that 2015 draft class might be the worst that the Saints have ever had. 2015 and 2020. The 2020 class, they only took 4 players. Cesar Ruiz, Zach Bond, Adam Troutman, Tommy Stevens. That was it. Ruiz has been a starter, but he's probably been one of the worst starting offensive guards in the NFL. We know what happened with Bond. Never found a home here. Goes to Philly's NFL Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Troutman never panned out. He's now in Denver. And Tommy Stevens didn't even make the team as a rookie. So that draft class was almost a total wash. 2015, I'll remind you of this exercise in futility. Andrus Peat was your first-round pick. You took Stephon Anthony with your second first-round pick that year. I mentioned Haole Kikaha in round 2, Garrett Grayson in round 3, along with P.J. Williams, Davis Tull, Tyler Davison, Damian Swann, and Marcus Murphy. 9 players, and that was a whole lot of suck. Point is, what I keep repeating over and over again is for the Saints, who are hitting the reset button right now, for this to work for the organization, they got to hit on these draft picks. And it's pretty clear right now that they missed on Isaiah Foskey. He's going into year 3, and when you look at what they have right now at pass rusher, obviously you spent money to re-sign Chase Young this offseason. You got Carl Granderson under a big contract you signed him to. Cam Jordan's at the end of his career, but obviously he's going to be on the team. That's 3. And after that, you're looking at a guy like Chris Rumph, who played for Brandon Staley in L.A. with the Chargers and has been really good. Was really good against the Chargers on Sunday. He's 26 years old. You went and signed Jonathan Bullard as well as a free agent. He's 31, but that's an experienced veteran NFL player. Jasheen Davis has turned some heads. You also drafted Fadil Diggs. They're both 23 years old. So you get some young guys there in the mix as well. But what you really have to have happen in order to make this reset work is hit on these rookies, because you have these guys for 4 or 5 seasons on their rookie contract. That allows you to reset your salary cap and all the quote unquote cap hell we've talked about for a decade and a half now. But it allows you to reset that. And by 2027, Saints will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $130 million under the cap with money to spend. So fantastic news as you project ahead to 2027. But for it all to work, you can't have Isaiah Foskey happen again. You can't take a guy in round 2 and have him give you nothing over 2 seasons and then effectively not make the team, which is what they're aiming for right here. I mean, this draft class from this year with Banks, who you hope is going to be your franchise left tackle, Shuck, who, fingers crossed, knock on wood, you hope is your franchise quarterback, Vernon Broughton, who, kind of fits the mold of what Bo Davis wants on the interior of a defensive line. Jonas Sanker was one of your highest-graded players from this preseason game this past weekend by PFF. Could be a contributing safety. Danny Stutzman played a ton this past weekend, all over the field. Maybe he's the heir apparent to Demario Davis. Can Quincy Riley be a boundary corner for you? Devin Neal, when he gets healthy, is he a guy that can make the team? I don't know what to expect out of the seventh-round picks and Maliki Matavao and Fadil Diggs. You got Diggs here, and you brought in Jeremiah Martin here as a defensive end. I'm not telling you that signing Jeremiah Martin is gonna be a franchise changer. I mean, that's a guy who I think is really going to struggle even to make this roster. But what it goes to show you is they're looking for options outside of Isaiah Foskey. There's just no other way to say it. This is a second-round pick that's going completely belly up. You hope to get starters in round 2, and instead you got a guy that barely contributed for 2 seasons and now likely isn't going to make the team in year 3. The biggest whiff in the second round since Stanley Jean-Baptiste in 2014 and Haoli Kikaha in 2015. So the Saints add Jeremiah Martin at defensive end, very likely meaning the end for Isaiah Foskey, barring some dramatic turnaround in the next 2 weeks. And the corresponding move I should mention was Hunter Dekkers, the quarterback. This is the second time now he's been waived in this offseason. So that's just the game that they're going to play as they need roster space as they continue juggling their roster. Dekkers will likely be the guy that they cut and sign and cut and sign. And when you do it once or twice and he doesn't get picked up after you waive him, it's just pretty clear that you're going to have that flexibility with him to be able to waive him whenever you need a roster spot to bring someone on. And then inevitably there will be another corresponding move somewhere that someone's gone. And then if someone's injured or gone or cut or whatever it is, and then you bring Dekkers back. So they probably gave him his pink slip and said, don't go too far because we're probably going to call you here in another week or so. But in any event, Hunter Dekkers waived, Jeremiah Martin signed, and the bigger news there probably is what the implication is for Isaiah Foskey. All right, it is After Further Review. Our show open every day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of your New Orleans Saints. Saints are at home in the Dome this weekend. If you are going to be in the Dome, make sure you got plenty of ice-cold Bud Light, or if you're watching at your house or wherever you be, drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the New Orleans Saints, the official beer of the LSU Tigers, Bud Light. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review, cruising along here on a Thursday, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing in Baton Rouge. We'll knock out a quick break, come back. We'll take it up to Clemson, South Carolina. 2 weeks from Saturday, LSU opens up at Clemson, and one of the most veteran players for the Clemson Tigers is battling an injury that actually is requiring crutches, according to some people up at Clemson. Dabo gave an update on that just a bit ago. We'll tell you what he said when we come back on AFR.
After Further Review.
Man, I love telling you about River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime. Give them a buzz at 752-0001, 752-0001, 752-0001, or 1hourbr.com. It's River City's 1 Hour Air. Listen, I tell you all the time, read the 5-star reviews. Read their reviews. They've got more than double the amount of 5-star Google reviews of the next closest competitor, and what you'll see over and over again is consistently the outstanding performance from their technicians, like this one from a woman named Chloe, who said, we had Kevin, technician, out to help us. He was so sweet, understanding, explained everything really well. Highly, highly recommend their services. It's another 5-star review for River City's 1 Hour Air. 752-0001, 752-0001, or online at 1hourbr.com. Spell it out, O-N-E, 1hourbr.com. For River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime.
After Further Review with Matt Moscano, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at decisioncriticalbr.com.
We'll talk to former Tiger safety Brandon Taylor, former number 18, here in about 42 minutes, right at the top of hour number 2. I asked Blake Baker when we met with him on Monday. Was lucky enough, got the microphone right out the chute, asked the first question. And I asked him how he would assess the safety position so far. And he said, yeah, it's pretty much the burning question everybody has. And he said, rightfully so. But the safety play at LSU last year was as bad as I've ever seen it. And that includes the year prior in 2023. I remember talking to Brandon Taylor before the season last year, and boy, he got fired up. I think he might have actually dropped a few expletives when he got heated. But there's so much pride a lot of those guys take in having built the DBU reputation, and it has faded, obviously. And I am of the contention that this team is the one that starts to get it back, because it's just very obvious they got way more talent now. You could obviously look at a 5-star like DJ Pickett, who it just looks different. You walk out on the field, you go, oh, that's the 5-star. Yeah, the kid that's 6'5" and can flip his hips and backpedal and can who looks awesome. That the tarantula out there, yeah, him. But Ashton Stamps is now a 3-year player who had 14 pass breakups a year ago. You bring in Mansour Delane, who's been a 2-year starter in the ACC at Virginia Tech. PJ Woodland has played really well for LSU, and then the safeties. The 2 transfer safeties you brought in to complement some of the young talent. Deshaun Spears, a 5-star who's growing up into his own as well. Jordan Gilbert is now a 5th-year player who's healthy, coming back. It looks more like it's supposed to look. I'm not telling you it's the 2011 secondary, which Brandon Taylor was part of, but it looks more like it's supposed to look. Anyway, we'll talk about that with Brandon coming up here in about 40 minutes from now, right at the top of hour number 2. We are 2 weeks from Saturday. LSU is going to play Clemson up in South Carolina, as you well know. And there are 2 key Clemson football players that are battling injuries here in preseason camp that are worth noting. So today, Thursday, Clemson had a scrimmage. It was their second scrimmage of fall camp. And in the first scrimmage, which was on August the 9th, so 6 days ago or 5 days ago, according to the Clemson Insider, veteran offensive lineman Walker Parks was injured. Now, the nature of the injury was undisclosed, but there are multiple reports that Parks has been seen using crutches over the last week since that scrimmage. After Thursday's practice, Dabo had media availability with reporters, and he was asked for an update on Walker Parks, and he didn't have a whole lot to say.
Oh, he'll be all right. He'll be all right. He'll be good to go. He didn't go today. We held him today, but he'll be all right.
He'll be all right. He'll be good to go. He didn't go today. We held him, but he'll be all right. Okay. If you're not familiar, so Walker Parks is he was all ACC last year, and he's preseason all ACC this year, and he could become this season just the second 6-year letter winner in Clemson football history. So his history there, Walker Parks, he has played in, this is significant, he's their starting right guard. He has played in 53 games with 42 starts, okay? He was a freshman during the COVID year and played in 11 games. He carved out a role as a rotational guy. It was actually a freshman All-America in the COVID season in 2020. And then he ends up becoming a starter in 21 and 22, starting all 13 games. Then in 23, he suffers an injury and plays in just 2 games. So he comes back last year for his 5th season because he had the COVID year, plays his 5th season, and starts all 14 games for Clemson last year. And now this year is back taking advantage of his redshirt year, right? So the COVID year effectively didn't count. 23 was a redshirt year for him when he was injured, and now he's back for his 6th season, the redshirt year and the COVID year. So 53 games played, 42 games started. If he starts the regular season for Clemson this year every game, he will exceed 60 career games played, which is just an astonishing amount of college football for one player. Just the experience, but also he's been very good. Like I said, he was all-conference offensive lineman last year. So I don't know the nature of the injury, and there's sometimes that guys are in boots or on crutches, and it's just precautionary. Like, I think we're conditioned to see a boot and to overreact. I guess I've just been out there enough to see it to know that's a stabilizing mechanism. Guys who aren't hurt a ton will be in a boot. I mean, let me give you a different sport, an analogy in a different sport that might make this make sense. So there have been gymnasts on the LSU team that'll be in a boot during the week, and then they'll compete on Friday. Well, it's just a stabilization thing during the week so that they can get them ready to go compete. And that's likely what they're going to do with Walker Parks. So when a guy's played in 53 career games, I trust Dabo when he says he's going to be all right and they're going to get him out there. But then again, he's not letting the media see practice, so I don't know. And if you do remove a piece there on the interior, like Walker Parks, it's just a significant drop-off in experience and productivity there. And the other thing that is really impactful is that's the spot this year throughout fall camp that we have primarily seen Bernard Gooden line up against. Now, you've heard me talk about Bernard Gooden. You heard Blake Baker talk about Bernard Gooden the other day as well. And he's a guy that everybody has struggled to block. Pull up Blake Baker, please, for Monday on Bernard Gooden. I want to play that soundbite as well. Because I think it's in it's probably in Alondra's folder for Monday. Josh Thompson has been LSU's first-team right guard throughout fall camp. And that's a guy that's an experienced player that was started the last 2 years in the Big Ten at Northwestern, comes to LSU, arrived late in the spring just because of the way that the semesters work at Northwestern. So really just diving into it now. But Josh Thompson's been very good. He just can't block Bernard Gooden. And this was Blake Baker talking about Bernard Gooden on Monday.
Bernard Gooden has been a joy in every sense of the word to coach. He is high energy. Y'all probably hear him more than anyone on the field. But in today's game, you even look in the NFL, there's not many, a lot of really, really successful defensive tackles are going to be between 280 and 305 pounds. The thing that he does really well, because he is so twitchy and has such good get-off, his second foot's in the ground before the offensive lineman. So even though he might be giving up 30 pounds, he's able to get leverage and get power, and the offensive lineman doesn't have his second foot in the ground. So, one of the things that we did through the evaluation process, obviously being an undersized guy, is really evaluate him hard against the run, and we really liked what we saw, and we really, really like what we see up to this point. He's done a great job creating havoc and holding point.
That was Blake Baker talking about Bernard Gooden. This was Gooden talking about being an undersized defensive tackle.
Yeah, I feel like one of the best D-linemen I look up to is Aaron Donald. Everybody used to say that about him, and look where he at now. So I feel like that don't mean nothing no more. So.
Guy compared himself to Aaron Donald. I'm not saying he's Aaron Donald. I don't think he's saying he's Aaron Donald. But the point being, when you have a guy that is, quote-unquote, undersized playing on the interior, that's the prototype for how you do it. You want to be explosive and powerful on the interior, and that's what he does. By the way, you heard Blake Baker say it as well. His mouth never stops, and you hear him. I think the way Blake Baker says, you guys probably hear him. He never shuts up. I told you this early in camp. There was one day I was watching the one-on-one pass rush drills, and Bernard Gooden was going against, I believe it was DJ Chester. I don't have my notes in front of me right now, and he was just shouting about being held and using every word you can imagine. And at one point, Kyle Williams finally just said, "Man, shut up and play football." His mouth never stops. This was good talking about trash talking nuts.
Just football talk. Some things that we talk about. Just getting at the other guy, trying to get in his head, throw him off his game. Just a couple friendly words.
That's what he's doing. I told you this 2 weeks ago. I'm going to repeat it. Remember when it happens where you heard it. Someone is going to retaliate against this guy. He is going to draw flags this year from offensive players that hit him in the face mask, shove him after the whistle because they're going to be sick of hearing him talk because he never shuts up. But it's the guy, it's like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. When he's on your team, you love him. When he's on the other team, you hate him. That's kind of the feeling I get here. But all this to say, if I bring it back full circle, we're talking about a guy in Walker Parks from Clemson who's going to be his 6th year at Clemson. He's been a starter since his 2nd year there. So we're talking about being a 5-year starter at Clemson. And even if he plays, if you're going to tell me Walker Parks is even limited a little bit in some way, and he's going to have to line up against Bernard Gooden, who you heard Blake Baker say he's got his second foot in the ground before most offensive linemen get their first foot down. That could be a problem. You want to circle one to watch? That's one to circle on August the 30th, even if Walker Parks plays, like even if he's good to go and plays, he's limited in any way. And you're talking about a bum wheel. I mean, he's got a flat tire somewhere along the way, and he's got to go up against Bernard Gooden. That's a problem. One other injury worth noting that Dabo talked about, again, just downplayed, but Adam Randall. So Adam Randall's a converted wide receiver, but remember, for Clemson, Phil Maffa, their running back from a year ago, ran for 1,100 yards. Phil Maffa's gone, so that's really the one really, really productive guy that they're losing on their team. And so Randall is now converting from receiver to running back and is expected to be the starter. So over his career at Clemson, he's got 48 catches for 533 yards and 2 touchdowns. But this year, they're moving him to running back, and he's expected to be the team's starting running back. Well, he was seen practicing earlier this week in a yellow no-contact jersey. Tiger Illustrated was the first to report that. Dabo said, no concerns there about Randall's injury, that he'll be good to go. But again, just things worth filing away and watching as we're 2 weeks out from the opener with LSU and Clemson. A couple injuries worth keeping an eye on. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here. We're brought to you by First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthLand.com. FirstSouthLand.com. If you're thinking of buying land, your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. Remember, for more than 100 years, First South Farm Credit has done one thing: help Louisianians buy land. Like you hear the commercials from Ben McDonald and David DeLucci on our station here talking about their experience buying their hunting property through First South Farm Credit. If you want to buy land, if it's 200 acres for hunting property, the 20 acres to build your family's dream home. If you're in agriculture, if you're a farmer, you know First South Farm Credit. You need the 1,000 acres for agriculture. Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. Go to FirstSouthLand.com. That's FirstSouthLand.com for First South Farm Credit. All right, y'all, glad to have you hanging out with us here on this Thursday edition of AFR, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing in Baton Rouge. It's got a ton of ground to cover as we'll move throughout the course of the show today, both Saints and Tigers. We'll go around the SEC when we come back, and also want to get to a couple other things. We've got preseason rankings coming in, preseason TV ratings for Shedeur Sanders game of the Cleveland Browns from Friday. It's not so much that the numbers were good, of course they were, but it's the highest rated preseason game since one a decade ago that when I draw the parallel, you're going to roll your eyes, but I'll tell you about that coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll knock out a quick break, come back, and go around the SEC. Stick around here on AFR.
AFR.
AFR is brought to you by Glow Resources, GLO, glowresources.com, glowresources.com. They are complete employer solutions. You can always reach out when we talk about the professional placement division and ask for Casey. She does a great job over there. At Glow Resources, yes, they specialize in skilled blue-collar labor, but they can help you with the professional placement division as well. If it's office administration, executive-level assistants, assistant controllers, plant managers, scheduling assistants, basically any type of office job, accounting, HR, marketing, managerial, or supervisor roles, they can move quickly based on your timeline. They'll give you a deep dive into market analysis. They'll give you updates based on the data in the market and all the findings there. It's at Glow Resources, GLO, glowresources.com. Look, home base is still right here in Baton Rouge. They service Baton Rouge, New Orleans, but they got offices in Miami and Orlando and Houston and all over the place to serve you. It's glowresources.com.
After Further Review with Matt Moscano, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at decisioncriticalbr.com.
The Associated Press has done, I guess this is interesting, maybe just because it's the Associated Press, and I don't know why they would do it now, but they did. The Associated Press today, I guess this is why. It's the 100th anniversary of the of their organization. So this is 100 years of the AP. That's why they did it. So I was wondering. So earlier today, the Associated Press released their all-time AP All-American team. Let me know if you agree with these or disagree. So the offense, quarterback was Tim Tebow. The receivers are Randy Moss and Larry Fitzgerald, which is interesting because you keep in mind we're talking about 100 years of college football, so dating back to 1925. So from 1925 to 2025, and they're essentially saying the best two wide receivers that have ever played college football are Randy Moss and Larry Fitzgerald. Hard to argue against. I mean, both were incredible, but both have been since 1997, which is kind of crazy to think in the 100-year that they've been covering. The Associated Press has been covering college football. The tackles, there was Orlando Pace and Bill Fralick. I cannot tell you I know who Bill Fralick is. He played at Pitt in the 80s. Orlando Pace was obviously outstanding, won the Outland at Ohio State, became the first pick of the NFL draft. The guards were John Hanna from Alabama and Jim Parker from Ohio State. Hanna played in 1972. Parker played in 1956. The center, Chuck Bednarik, who played at Penn in the 40s. Now, obviously, there's an award named after Bednarik. But it's interesting because the Chuck Bednarik Award goes to the outstanding defensive player in college football, and they have Chuck Bednarik on here as a center, obviously an era where guys were two-way players. Best tight end in college football history, according to the AP. Brock Bowers from Georgia, just a couple of years ago. You mentioned Tebow as the quarterback. The running backs, they've got Barry Sanders and Herschel Walker. Hard to argue against either of those. Maybe you could throw Bo Jackson in, but who do you take out? Kicker, they got Sebastian Janikowski and the all-purpose player Johnny Rodgers from Nebraska in 1972. First-team defense, their ends, Hugh Green from Pitt, Randy White from Maryland. Tackles, Ndamukong Suh and Bronco Nagurski. Linebackers, Dick Butkus, Derek Thomas, the late Derek Thomas from Alabama, and then Chris Spielman from Ohio State. Cornerbacks, Charles Woodson, Deion Sanders. Safeties, Ronnie Lott, Ed Reed. And then the punter they have is Torrey Taylor, who finished at Iowa in 2023. Much respect to the Iowa punter in 2023 because that's when Iowa still couldn't complete a forward pass or score. Their defense scored more touchdowns than their offense did. So hat tip to Torrey Taylor for earning that distinction. Interesting exercise. I don't know if there was an I was thinking about it earlier. If there was an LSU player who belonged on the list, it's so hard to argue because if you're going to put someone on, then you got to take someone off, right? And honestly, the only player that I could think that probably deserved to be on, I would say would have been Glenn Dorsey, who is the most decorated defensive player in the history of LSU football. But you've got Ndamukong Suh and Bronco Nagurski. I mean, Nagurski has an award name. Like, Dorsey won Nagurski's award. You know what I mean? It's like, do you take Nagurski off when Dorsey won the guy's award? I don't know. And then Ndamukong Suh was so dominant at Nebraska that season in 2009, where he damn near individually won the Big 12 championship game for Nebraska against Texas, of course. Colt McCoy in Texas won that game on a last-second field goal where McCoy threw the ball away. It looked like Bo Pelini was going to get a big upset in the Big 12 championship game. But McCoy threw the ball away. It looked like time expired, but they went and reviewed it, determined it landed on the ground out of bounds with 1 second left. They kicked the field goal. But Suh was outstanding in that game. So I don't know. That would be the one. If there's someone I'm missing, let me know who your thoughts are. I mean, you could talk about someone like Tommy Casanova, who's LSU's only 3-time All-American, but you can take Ronnie Lott or Ed Reed off this list for Tommy Casanova. Tough, It's always tough when you do something like that. It's a fun exercise. It's all a hypothetical, but I do completely agree with Tim Tebow. I think Tim Tebow had the most dominant and decorated college career of anyone I've seen and covered. So there have been better individual seasons, but over the course of a career, 4 years at Florida, winning 2 national championships, becoming the SEC's all-time leader in all-purpose yardage, he was incredible. So I have actually no problem whatsoever with Tim Tebow, despite the professional career not being what many thought. I had no problem at all with Tim Tebow being there as the all-time quarterback on that list. Let me know if you got a thought. You can email us, tweet us, text us, 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. Love telling you about Supper Club, supperclubbtr.com, supperclubbtr.com. Yo, it's Thursday. If you're knocking off of work and you want to start your weekend early, instead of going home, go to Supper Club. I'm mad I don't have a jacket. It's all right. You got a collared shirt on? You can go to Supper Club. That's a big misconception. People think you have to wear a jacket or sport coat. You don't. You just got to have a collar. That's the stated dress code. Now, I love throwing on a jacket. I love dressing up when I go to Supper Club, but you do you. And remember, you want to go have a great dinner, I would always recommend a reservation. But it's always open seating at the bar. And I was telling you last week that they got a bottle of the Last Drop in. It's a special release from Buffalo Trace. If you're a whiskey nerd like me, you've probably heard of this. Just understand that this will probably be the only opportunity you'll ever have, maybe in your life, quite literally, to try this. It's a very rare bottle. It's a blended whiskey, the youngest of which is 27 years old. A lot of people who there's only 508 bottles in the world, 508 bottles in the world, and Supper Club has one of them. And it's one of those things where a lot of people who get this bottle, they're not going to open it. They're going to store it, save it, kind of as an investment, and try to sell it in 15 or 20 years. Supper Club opened it, and they're selling it by the ounce, so their great guests can enjoy it. So if you love rare whiskey like I do, get on by Supper Club, get you a pour of the Last Drop, and have an awesome meal. SupperClubBTR.com, SupperClubBTR.com. That's Supper Club right there on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge. All right, y'all, it is after further review. Glad to have you hanging out with us here. One other thing real quickly that I wanted to get to in this segment. The University of Kansas, we don't talk a ton of Kansas here at all. Maybe the only time we ever talked Kansas here was when Les Miles took the job there. But Kansas received an unprecedented gift. David Booth, who graduated from Kansas and is a hedge fund. He's an investment guy. The stadium is named after him. It's David Booth Memorial Stadium in Kansas now. They named the stadium after him in 2018. He made a $300 million gift to Kansas athletics. It's believed to be the largest or among the largest single gifts in the history of college athletics, and certainly the largest in history at Kansas, largest individual gift. Now, Kansas has said they're going to take $75 million of that $300 million, and they'll launch the second phase of their ongoing transformation of their football stadium. You might remember last year, Kansas played 6 games in the Kansas City area while they're going through this renovation of their stadium. But they're building their stadium to this whole entertainment district around the stadium, which is a pretty awesome idea. But they're going to take the rest of the gift. So $75 million will go toward the second phase of the stadium. The other $250 million, $225 million, is going to establish an annual additional revenue stream for Kansas athletics. Remember, this is the time in which we live. And I know a lot of times when I talk about business or money and all this sort of stuff, it maybe doesn't hit home with everybody. But the thing that's maybe most important to know is you can't compete today if you don't have money. I mean, it's always been the case. But there's the haves and the have-nots, and that line of demarcation has never been clearer. And there have been teams that haven't been able to compete in the past and now can. Texas Tech is a great example of that. SMU, quite literally, bought their way into a power league. They told the ACC, don't even worry about our media rights for a decade. We got it covered. Because they had a bunch of billionaires just say, we'll cover it, whatever you need. And they bought a roster. They bought their way to the Power Four. Great. Mazel tov. Cheers. Love it. Great. Whatever. You do you. If you can afford it. I very much believe in meritocracy. I ain't about everybody gets a trophy. I'm not about the redistribution of wealth. I am all about you make money and you can spend it and be good. You spend money and be good. Good for you. But the fascinating part about this is in this era where now athletic departments have to share $20.5 million of their revenue with their student athletes, everyone is scrambling to go, how are we going to find $20.5 million in our budget? Where are we going to cut expenses? How are we going to generate new revenue? Well, guess what? Kansas just solved that problem. Because they can take $225 million and off the interest alone every year, supplement their athletic department to be able to fill that gap. I'm not telling you it'll be the entire $20 million, but whatever it is, whatever rate they get, 3%, 5%, I don't know, the interest alone is going to generate millions of dollars annually to help fill that gap for revenue share. It's pretty incredible. I mean, just like that, Kansas became relevant. I mean, Lance Leipold's a really good coach. We know that. But at a place like Kansas, if you win, you get scooped up and you end up somewhere else. This is the type of thing where they've got enough money, like at Texas Tech and like at SMU and like at other places where they've chosen to invest. You can win there now. Like, it's funny to say, but this gift just bought Kansas relevance, which is crazy. But it's the era in which we live. Good for them. All right, it's After Further Review. Thursday shows are presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing in Baton Rouge. It's not just healthcare. It's healthcare for your lifestyle. You can schedule that discovery call at decisioncriticalbr.com, decisioncriticalbr.com. Quick break. We'll wrap up hour number 1 next.
AFR.
I was over at Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness just yesterday. And yes, the name is Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness, and the name is funny, and the logo is funny, but it's so much more than just ED. Yes, they do ED treatments. They do so much more. Hormone replacement therapy is a massive part of their business. Men, women, I don't care what the number is of your age. It's more about how you feel. Every one of us ages differently. Every single one of us. As we age, our body produces less of the hormones that contribute to how we feel. You want to feel like your younger self? A simple blood test can let you know if you're a candidate for HRT. Lowest prices, never any contracts. YourGoodwood.com, YourGoodwood.com. But the thing that's so exciting are the many different peptide therapies that they have, like BPC 157, NAD+, and so many more. You want to regain your youthful feeling, live your optimal life? You can do it affordably. Goodwood can help. Visit YourGoodwood.com. That's YourGoodwood.com.
After Further Review with Matt Moscano, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at decisioncriticalbr.com.
All right, wrapping up hour number 1. Thanks for hanging out with us here. Former Tiger great Brandon Taylor in 10 minutes from right now. The TV ratings are in for Shedeur Sanders' preseason debut. Of course, the Cleveland Browns last Friday night played the Carolina Panthers, who are miserable in their own right. And so the fact that Shedeur went off against a miserable team in a preseason game really shouldn't amount to much. However, I am on the record. Whether his career goes great or horribly, I will never run from it. I would have been perfectly fine with the Saints taking Shedeur Sanders at 9. That was my contention all the way along. He may stink in the NFL. He may completely wash out, and I'll own that, or he may be great. Truth is, probably fall somewhere in between. But it was so interesting because the NFL has done one thing exceptionally well. They have turned themselves into a TV product 12 months out of the year. From the season ending now in February to a few weeks after the Super Bowl, it goes into the combine. Then you go into the draft cycle, the NFL draft, and then it's rookie mini camp, and then it's OTAs, and then it's mandatory mini camp, and then you get into, obviously, training camp, and then the preseason, and then the season, and then rinse and repeat. And so the NFL has turned itself into a 12-month TV show. So whenever you see something resonate, the NFL typically wants to capitalize on it. I mean, the Taylor Swift story from 2 years ago when she and Travis Kelce started dating and everyone lost their minds because they kept showing Taylor Swift in the press box or whatever, or the suite whenever she arrived. Like, it also brought untold new audiences to the NFL. Like, that is an undeniable truth. People came to the NFL because of Taylor Swift, who my wife gave her best friend this weekend for her birthday a homemade Travis Kelce Kansas City Chiefs hat. My wife can't spell Kansas City Chiefs. She couldn't point to she couldn't tell you what Arrowhead Stadium is. She couldn't point to it on a map. She couldn't tell you what the conference. She don't even know what a division is. But she cares about them because of Taylor Swift. Point is, when there's something that will attract new audiences, the NFL knows how to capitalize, and Shedeur Sanders, part of that. The thing that sucks for Cleveland and for the NFL is the Browns have no primetime games, and the only standalone contest, which could be flexed, is they play in Week 5 in London against the Vikings. So even if Shedeur becomes a phenomenon, you're only going to see him on primetime one time all year, potentially one time all year. But it was interesting, the TV ratings, they got 2.2 million viewers. It's the highest rated preseason game in a decade. By the way, that last highest rated preseason game a decade ago also included a Browns rookie quarterback. Johnny Football. 1.81 rating, 2.2 million viewers on the NFL Network, August 12th of 2014. Let's hope it goes better for Shedeur than it did for Johnny. Anyway, Shedeur is dealing with an oblique injury. We'll see when he gets back on the field. All right, it's after further review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here on this Thursday edition. We always appreciate Decision Critical Concierge Nursing in Baton Rouge, decisioncriticalbr.com. Okay, quick break. Sports Center's coming up. We'll talk to Brandon Taylor right after Sports Center. It's AFR.
AFR.
School is starting. Make sure you bring your kiddos for their annual eye exam over at the Williamson Eye Center. Give them a shout, okay? 924-2020, 924-2020, 924-2020, or WilliamsonEye.com. That's WilliamsonEye.com. Remember, like I told you, look, when I was a kid, bad eyes. Me and my brother, my sister all had terrible eyes. God bless. My sister had glasses when she was in kindergarten. My brother had LASIK years ago. Anyway, point is, when I was in sixth grade, I had to get glasses for to be able to read the board. Contacts in the eighth grade. Wore contacts all the way until I had LASIK with Dr. Blake about 7 years ago, and one of the best decisions I could have made. But all that to say, make sure you bring your children for their annual eye exam. Williamson Eye Center has 8 locations all over Greater Baton Rouge, including St. Francisville and Zachary and Baton Rouge and Lutcher and all over the place. It's WilliamsonEye.com. That's WilliamsonEye.com for the Williamson Eye Center.